Greetings and salutations. Once again, we are back with some one talent challenge in Act 3. Now, like my one previous video said, I forgot how big this act really is. It's quite large. I hope to get it done, the act anyway, within one or two videos. Whether or not I actually do that is gonna be a feat in and of itself. Oh yeah, Slayer Dungeon. I'm not there yet. Oh, goody goody. And as always, I do these in hardcore, unedited, and pretty much just off the cuff. And while I love my But Will It Snipe series, I've been wanting to put more time in between them, based solely off the fact that once I've done all of the But Will It Snipes, I'm gonna have to come up with more content, at least in that regard. That, and it's much easier to just kind of wing it with a free-flowing discussion in here and be, well, I heard Blessed Aim. There it is. I knew I heard the Blessed Aim somewhere. But, it's much easier to go off the cuff and just have a nice philosophical, theoretical discussion, if you will. Or to just talk about anything. Anything and everything. And this game allows for that, because it's a more relaxed medium. You don't have to concentrate as hard as you would in, say, like Call of Duty, or as you would in, any other intense game, especially when you're trying to snipe with a grenade launcher or SMG or something. Trying to pull those long-distance shots with something that's not supposed to long-distance shoot. It can kind of eat away at the attention given to commentary. Whereas with this, I don't really have to worry about things. I have a mercenary I can fall back behind. I have ravens that, while they don't actually block anything, can do the heavy lifting of killing things. So it's a more Tal room. Gives me a more relaxed atmosphere. Now, obviously, there's going to be tense moments, probably by the end of Act 3. What with Mephisto being, well, Mephisto. I mean, I don't know why they just stopped with Mephisto. Why not just call him by his entire name, Mephistopheles? Just like, maybe they felt like that was too much like a parent. You sit there and you're like, Mephistopheles, stop. I saw you bullying kids in the schoolyard. It's like when your parents used to call you by your, first, middle, and last name. You knew you were in trouble. If they caught you, they caught you doing something you weren't supposed to do, like, picking on a kid, or about ready to hit your sister with a stick or something. Yeah, they're just like, they call you by your first and middle name, and you're just kind of like, I did something wrong. And you knew. I guess maybe they wanted to avoid that by calling him Mephistopheles. But nevertheless, he's got the lightning and the cold damage I kind of have to worry about. Specifically that frozen orb, because it's not like Sorceress's frozen orb. No, you get 100% of the damage in one ball, right in your face. It's quite painful. I thought about doing a Diablo 4 playthrough, but then, I don't know. It's just something about Diablo 4 that just rubs me the wrong way. And I can't really put my finger on it. And I've been trying to find out exactly what it is. And then it dawned on me just the other day. That the thing that rubs me the wrong way about Diablo 4 is that it's trying to be an MMO. Like an MMO ARPG. And it's lost the soul. Like, this game had heart and soul. Like, this game was like, hey, you know what? we might not be the prettiest belle at the ball, but we've got that personality. We've got that soul to us. And it felt like a hack and slash dungeon crawling RPG. Now, it wasn't anywhere in the realms of like Baldur's Gate 2, which is too heavy on the Dungeons and Dragons for my tastes. It's like I don't really need to be sitting there, rolling dice to find out if I actually hit the enemy. So that goes on in the background as a computation. I don't really need to sit there and physically roll the dice and see, my rolls come up and roll critical failure. But Diablo 4 just kind of lost that whole spirit of being a true Diablo game. It just doesn't feel like Diablo. It feels somewhere in the middle of like Lost Ark met Diablo in a shadowy parking lot, and they did a poor attempt at the fusion technique. That's what it felt like. Which, by the way, right there shows my anime nerd reference. Now, it's not to say that Lost Ark is a bad game, because I don't inherently think, from a design point, that there are bad games. Per se. There are people that don't know what they're doing when they make a game, and as such, make a poor quality game. But are they really bad? No, because if you think about it, it was someone's vision, right? Like, realistically speaking, building a game is someone's vision. It's how they envision the game to be. That doesn't mean that you and that person will share the same vision. It's much in the same way of art. You sit down and, not all art is going to be appreciated by all people. Art is very subjective. And as such, you've got that feeling like games should be treated as art in such a way. Do I think that there's a lot of poor quality games these days? Oh, yes. Yes, I think a lot of poor quality games have come out. And I think it's because people are trying to do... they're trying to check as many boxes as they can to appease as many people as they can. And in doing so, have alienated their core audiences that brought them the success in the beginning. Perfect example would be with Diablo 2. Diablo 2 gained astronomical success after the first one. And the first one was successful because it literally was just a great story. Like, first Diablo story was you show up in Tristram and you're tasked with finding Leoric's son. You just know that Leoric's son went to the chapel. He went to the cathedral. So you go to the cathedral, and you're then sent down through the cathedral looking for this kid. Well, you can't find it, because, well, you know what? I'm just going to say it. Spoiler alert. Leoric's son was sacrificed by Archbishop Lazarus to summon Diablo. And so, as you're going through these layers of the cathedral, it's slowly peeling back the story that you're not finding this child. And then you get down to where Archbishop Lazarus is, and you see the sacrificial altar. And Lazarus is like, I did what had to be done for the master. And right then and there, it just shows that, like, the Archbishop was actually an evil individual. Of course, this drives Leoric mad, which is then later explained in Diablo 3. But if you think about it, like, look at what that does. That right there set the stage for you're dealing with, quite the sinister group of people. And you're just some dude that went in to do this, right? This wasn't, you weren't deemed the Nephilim. There was no pretext that you were like some superpowered individual or anything like that. It was just, you're looking for a lost kid. And you get tangled up in it. That's how it felt. And then when the game ended, you notice that your character, again, spoiler alert, drives the soul stone into his head. Now, the first game ended up becoming quite successful. I mean, rightfully so. It was a really good storyline. It was well done. The game played very well. It had mechanical issues in terms of the duping and making duplicate items and everything. And it had many issues with like the PvP and, just overall ne'er-do-wells on the internet playing a game, getting a competitive edge. Well, fast forward, Diablo 2 was actually such an astronomical success that they were not anticipating the influx of buyers of this game back in the day. And when I got my original copy of Diablo 2, and I mentioned this in an earlier video, I received my copy of Diablo 2, and I did not have a single game box. I was not given a box whatsoever. I was sent a manila envelope with the CD jewel case inside, and the discs inside of the jewel case, with the CD key slapped on the back of the jewel case. And I went to go try and play it online. My first character was a necromancer. And I went to sign on, and nothing. And the people in the channel were like, oh, good luck getting into a game. The servers are dying. It was overwhelmed. It had hundreds of thousands of people on trying to play it. The servers bogged down and pretty much just caught fire, for lack of a better term. And I remember it clearly, as clear as day. And that is, somebody was just like, he was just like, man, my box says online play. And I sat there and I'm like, I was just like, your box says online play? Well, I never got a box. And they were just like, wait, you're kidding me? I said, no, it was shipped in a manila envelope. And so this game had meteoric success. However, looking back on it, it was only by looking back on the game did I realize that the success of this game was not just because of the first game, but if you were to take a look at this game as a standalone game, not the LOD expansion and not the patches after the launch, but just the game itself as a standalone game, you'll notice something. That the game itself is not really all that complete or polished. It's like if you can find an old disc of regular Diablo 2 or a torrent, I didn't actually recommend that. But if you can find it and install it and do a single player game, do a single player playthrough of just regular Diablo 2. No LOD, no patches, 1.00. And play it. It's got a lot of flaws. A lot of flaws. There was no there was absolutely no synergies.
Yes.
Like when you look at, if we go here, that's not a bad weapon. Maybe I should switch. It's normal attack speed. There's normal. And it gives me fire resist. I don't need that because I'm not actually going to be hitting people. I should just sell the death spade. Yeah, I'll just sell it. Because I'm not using the shared stash anyway. So when I die, I lose all this stuff, so out it goes. Nevertheless, you look back at the game, it was not very polished. There wasn't a whole lot of synergy, and talents didn't mesh well together. For example, let me bring up the talent tree here. If you take a look at, say, the summoning where I've put in ravens, you see down here the raven bonuses. Those didn't exist. That actually is a LOD and beyond element that was added. In the later versions of regular Diablo 2, they added it, but it was a while. It was a long while before they added it. And it was just it's kind of sad that there was none of that synergistic like, effects at all. And so it just... I don't need the Swampy Pit. I need the Flare Dungeon. Oh, the undead Stygian dolls, too. They're going to explode. Gotta watch out for that. But, people... people said that this game is an absolute masterpiece. And when you've gotten all the patches and you've gotten the expansion, yes, it is. It's an absolute masterpiece. However, without it, it's just kind of an everyday run-of-the-mill game. Like, play regular Diablo and tell me how amazing it is. You'll quickly find out that it's lacking in places. It's still a good game, but it's lacking. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't 100% play it again and again and again, because I totally would. And then you fast forward to, like, Diablo 3, and this is where I think Blizzard started getting lost in the sauce. Like, Diablo 3 kind of went full circle. I mean, and realistically speaking, like, storyline, it went full circle. It brought back Adria the Witch. It brought back the fact that, Adria had a daughter, Leah, and Leah is the niece of Deckard Cain. And good old Uncle Deckard didn't know what to do with Leah. She was going to be a great Herodrum. But she went down the path of darkness. And now it's too late. I blame Adria. Anyhow, she it did come full circle, and I gotta hand it to them that way. They did at least write the plot line back in. The issue is it didn't feel like a Diablo game. Like, Diablo 3 didn't feel very Diablo. With randomized dungeons and stuff like that. It did not have the same feel of Diablo or Diablo 2. It broke away from that. And Diablo 3 had a lot of problems as it was being made. And people rightfully criticized it, critiqued it. And they sat there calling it a bad game. And I said, well, I was on the forums. Now, mind you, I'm not a fan of Diablo 3. I wasn't really a fan of it then, either. I liked the challenge that it presented, especially in Infernal. An Infernal difficulty, but I thought people were unfairly critiquing the game. And the reason I thought they were unfairly critiquing the game is because they were sitting there saying that the game was this awful junk heap of a mess. And I'm thinking to myself, but is it really? Like, realistically looking at it, when you look at... Oops, did not want to open his inventory. When you look at Diablo 3 from the lens of... It was incomplete, right? So was Diablo 2. Like, they didn't have synergies and none of that stuff. All that stuff got patched in afterward. Hello. And then, with that being the case, it felt lacking. And Diablo 3 felt lacking as well. However, nobody took me up on the challenge. I said, go through and play Diablo 2, patch 1.00, no patches, no expansion, and tell me how good it is. I thought everybody was looking through it with rose-tinted goggles. And so I wanted him to do it. I challenged people to do it. Nobody took me up on the challenge. Shocking. And
this magic ring does me no good.
I love how he says that.
Wear it proudly.
This magic ring does me no good. That magic ring doesn't do me any favors, Ormus. And I got a mantle to heal, and I got a ring of the leech. This gives me cold resist, stamina, charge bolt when struck. It's not all that good. I'll put it in here. just in case I might run into some cold damage down the line. But does me no good either, Ormus. But like I was saying, I think that people were unfairly judging Diablo 3 because they were expecting better than Diablo 2 LOD when it first hit the store shelves. And I fervently believe that they were just like, you know what? This should have been D2 LOD plus. And it's like, I'm sorry guys, but it's never going to be that. Like, let's realistically look at it. They had how many revisions of Diablo 3? I think it was 2. Then they had to build a whole new engine and start over from scratch. And that's why it took them forever. And it was tragic. And then, of course, the most tragic thing, of course, is where Blizzard came out and then just looked at everybody when Diablo 4 was being made. And they said, we're not going to make Diablo 4 into Diablo 3. They said, we're not going to do the parabolic damage increase. We're not going to, go crazy with the stats, and you're not going to do billions of damage. And they wanted to make PvP, what was the words they used? Meaningful and fun. Or worthwhile and fun. Either way, same thing. They wanted to make the PvP good. And when Diablo 4 came out, that was never really the case. It just never happened. It fell by the wayside. Like, the PvP as a whole was just like, nah. I don't know. I don't know how to explain the PvP. At first, it was enjoyable. Till about level 50. Once you got to about 50, the PvP stopped being enjoyable because by then people had figured out the meta and it completely just eviscerated the PvP as a whole. Because all you had was the meta players running around, all running like Wolf NATO Druid or whatever the barbarian fad of the month was at that point. And they kept doing this. And they would just come blazing through the PvP zone and just shred everything. And you didn't have any chance to fight back. And once they got all their blood shards and got all the cosmetic gear, they just stopped playing PvP. So Blizzard lied about the PvP. And then they lied about the parabolic damage increase, too. Now, it might not be that way in PvP. They might not have the billions of damage, but it still doesn't matter. People are still getting one shot in PvP. So, there's no effective way to really say that they've curtailed the parabolic damage in PvP, because they haven't. I mean, I wish they had. They didn't curtail the parabolic damage in the game either. And so now they're spending all their time making new bosses, which is just reskins of old bosses with abilities that old bosses had, redone, but this time they have 900% more health. So they're super hard. And they're going to be, you watch, the next ones are going to be called like the Primal Giga Chad bosses. Like, y'all done Primal Giga Lilith? No, we haven't. They're out of ideas, is what I'm getting at. I mean, they're so out of ideas that the Spiritborn is the Witch Doctor plus the Monk. That's it. It runs off of a very similar premise as the Witch Doctor and the Monk. And it's got some splashes of Druid in there, what with the little, like, bonuses that you get, like, of the Panther or whatever. They were talking about it. I didn't pay much attention to it because I'm not getting the expansion. That aside, this game is well loved. Like I received a comment actually from a guy that said he enjoyed playing this in his youth, and it's like I still enjoy playing it now. I thanked him for the kind words, and to be fair, I do. This game is thoroughly enjoyable, even when I limit myself in a hardcore setting. It's very enjoyable, and yeah, I've had detractors. My mother used to play Diablo 2. I'll just say that she used to play Diablo 2 a lot, and I've had detractors saying, well, what happens if your character dies? Well, if my character dies, then don't I just start over? And they're like, oh, I can't do that. I can't start over. And it's like, why not? Like, what's the worst thing that happens? They're like, oh, well, I've wasted all that time. But was it really wasted? It's enjoyable. You're enjoying playing the game, right? Can't truly be called wasted if you're enjoying it. Ouch.
I can't carry anymore.
Of course not. You can't wrap your stumpy little fingers around it. Stumpy sausage druid fingers. No shock there either. Oh, that's ethereal? Forget it. That doesn't sell worth beans. Anytime you get an ethereal item, you're better off just throwing it back on the ground. Well, maybe not an ethereal legendary. If you get an ethereal legendary, you obviously take it with you. Ah, Kalim's brain. It knows the true location of the Orb of Travancore, or whatever it's called. There we go.
Hello.
Accidentally flipped through it too much. Not a big loss there. It's going to be another dissertation from Deckard. It's going to be him telling me, "You've done great getting the Kalim's brain. Every step we take brings us closer to defeating the prime evils." Deckard Cain's like that delightful broken record of senility. He sits there, and I'm just going to get rid of the other ring, by the way. He sits there, and he's just like, we have to go after the prime evils. Yes, Uncle Deckard, but the prime evils are out there. We know, Uncle Deckard. He's a delightful old codger. He is. I don't know what to do after I've done the one talent challenge. I mean, if I succeed, which I don't know if I'm gonna be honest with you, what would I do if I did succeed? Right? Like I make it past normal, I put another point in, I invest 20 points into it, I make it through Nightmare, I invest my third point, and make it all the way through Hell. What happens then? Do I just start over with a different class? Do I switch to a different game? Well, by that I'll be neck deep in Regulation H in Pokemon. I know that that's not going to be people's ideal game, but let me tell you, if you've never done competitive Pokemon battling before, it's wild. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. In certain games, like chess, games that take thought, you know what? I'm not drinking enough potions to stick in your ear. I'll just drink those. I'm going to keep the stamina ones because I need the stamina to run more and more. But in most games, there's no... Like in chess, there's only so many opening moves you can do, right? And everybody kind of understands what all of the opening moves are in chess. Same way with checkers. There's only so many opening moves you can do in checkers. However, you start getting into more strategic things, there's a lot more first turn, first moves you can do. Things like Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, you're starting to talk like tens of thousands of permutations of what you could play based on the class you're playing, or the color you're playing in Magic, or the class you're playing in Hearthstone, based on who your opponent is, what color or class they're playing respectively in the games, and based on anything, what cards you have in your opening hand, your mulligan, and so on and so forth. Having that many permutations of an opening move makes it more strategic. Obviously, it makes it harder to predict the first turn. If you figure that Pokemon, now specifically Regulation H, because Regulation G is not the same. Regulation G is it's full of legendaries and Paradox Pokemon and whatnot, so you'll always see those exact legendaries and Paradox Pokemon all the time. You can narrow down the moves they're going to make, and even then, that's in the hundreds of thousands to millions of opening moves based on moveset and their Pokemon combos and everything. So when you start talking Regulation H, which doesn't allow you to use Paradox Pokemon, it doesn't allow you to use legendaries. It actually broadens the number of Pokemon that can be used, and in doing so, increases the number of opening moves exponentially. Somebody said, I believe it was Disguise Toast, and he did rough math. He said out of the 700 or so selectable Pokemon that exist, the number of moves you could get if you were to have 4 moves per Pokemon times 2 before terrestrialization was he was just like 1 point something trillion moves on turn 1. He's like, and that's in singles, that's not even including doubles. He's like, in doubles it's even more. And I highly recommend people get into Regulation H, and I'm hoping Game Freak keeps Regulation H around a while. I guess it's their rule set, and that rule set's actually a solid one. And I encourage everybody to get into it. I mean, at least give it a shot. Now, I know that Pokemon's not a game where people are going to sit down and think that it's for them or for the kids or whatever, but... Ooh, another Tal rune. Give. Pokemon is not necessarily a kid's game, because you need to understand math, not really complex math, but decent amount of math. You need to understand strategy. You need to be able to predict your opponent's moves to be a really good Pokemon battler. And so Regulation H is going to be really good for a lot of people to get into, because you won't have that, snowball effect where one person does something and then the game rolls out of control. That won't happen as much in Regulation H as it did in Regulation G. Regulation G was just awful. Like, it snowballed terribly. Yeah, I'll be doing that in the beginning of September. So in like 5 days. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I haven't done competitive Pokemon in a long time. I've already got 2 teams built. I do want to build a 3rd, but I don't know exactly what to do in terms of a general strategy. We'll take a look at it. I mean, I don't know. As far as general strategy goes, it could be a hit or a miss.
Hey,
Put those away. Also need to make the edge longbow, or not longbow, edge bow, which is right there. Which that's going to help me get past a lot of things coming up. But I am going to leave this episode here. I hope you had a great time. I did. I kind of like waxing philosophically or, nostalgically about playing games like this. And I enjoy the more free flowing, like I said, because it's when you're in a really tense moment in Call of Duty, you tend to focus more on the game than you do on like verbal content. And of course, leaving it unedited shows more of a stream of consciousness thing. Whereas when you edit videos, there's this tendency to show just your best side, just your best qualities, and not to make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, you just kind of edit those out and they say, oh, well, those never make it. And then the editor's just like, oops, sorry, I bumped the microphone there. See what I mean right there? Like somebody be like, oh, just got to edit that out. No, just leave it in, lets people know that you're human, that you make mistakes, that problems occur, that things happen. And it's not the mistakes in life you make, but it's how you bounce back. The movie Rocky said it best. Life's always going to win. Life's going to knock you down. But it's not about being knocked down. It's about getting back up. And that's the case. Life is always going to win in the end. Because everyone has the moment where they no longer are alive. And life wins the fight. But the point of it is to put on the best possible show. So that everyone looks at you and goes, that was not a boring fight to watch. That's the whole point of it all. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I did. I always do. Even when I play poorly on like Call of Duty or on here, I still love it. It's great fun. And making videos on YouTube is great fun. And it beats streaming. I used to stream a lot and it felt strained because the audience was there, but when they don't talk back, you don't get that immediate feedback. It just kind of falls into dead air and dead space. And so needing that interaction helps when streaming. But on a video, it's you put it all out there and run with it. But I hope everybody has a fantastic evening and a wonderful tomorrow, or a wonderful evening and a fantastic tomorrow, either way. And as always, have a good one.